And hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We've got a fun episode because we're continuing the conversation about one of our favorite subjects, blockchain. But in particular, today, we're going to talk about decentralized finance, also known as DeFi. Talked a little bit yesterday about how Bitcoin or BTC, whether it was or was not impacting financial markets and infrastructure. We talked earlier this week about just what was happening in blockchain in general, along with digital currencies. We talked just moments ago about what was happening in the entire industry. We have new ETFs in Canada around both blockchain and Ethereum. We also have some new blockchain mainnets that are actually, or protocol mainnets that are about to come out later this month and into next month as well, that will play a role into DeFi. We had PayPal open up the world of crypto to its 77 million customers on Venmo earlier this week as well. Morgan Stanley raised a Bitcoin fund with a little lackluster of amount of money based on our conversation yesterday, and so much more. What does it all mean for you? Either as an investor or as an entrepreneur, we're going to break it all down. We've got some great co-hosts today that will be joining me for today's discussion. So comment box is open. We'd love to hear from you. Say hi. Happy Friday, everybody. And also throw in any questions. If you've got some, we'd love to try to answer them. If not, we're all available afterwards online social media, and we'd love to hear from you as well. Big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making today's episode of VCTV possible. Again, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce today's co-host with me as well. Adrian, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Hello, Kyle. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here again in the VCTV family. I'm Edwin Niculescu, serial entrepreneur and investors. My genius zones are marketing, sales, and business development, and I love keep my hands dirty in these areas. Besides advisory roles and board membership slots, I'm involved with few projects. CloudCoin Consortium. CloudCoin is a post-blockchain digital currency. Faster Capital, a Dubai-based accelerator and incubator for startups. Saga Global Ventures, which is a London-based venture capital firm, and also I'm a mentor in Virgin Startups program in UK. Happy to be here and to discuss about this exciting topic.
Exciting it is, Adrian, and thank you as well. Just for our audience, as well for context before Ben's introduction. So right now, DeFi Total Value Lock, TVL, something we talk a lot about here on VCTV. According to DeFi Pulse, is sitting right at about $53.75 billion. Now that's still almost 54x from where we were last year, but quite a bit down from where we were yesterday in terms of that total value lock. Now I'm gonna pause there. Ben, welcome to the show as well. It's a pleasure to have you. A little introduction and background for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And Kyle, Adrian, great to meet you. So my background actually, by trade, I'm a lawyer. So my background in fintech and crypto in the early days came around regulation. I was involved with early ICOs, and then as the industry matured, worked with a number of different companies that were first to market with innovative crypto products like investment funds, exempt market dealers, broker dealers, and things of that nature. And then over the last few years have kind of stepped more into commercial roles, and my current company, DeFi Ventures, squarely focused on this space. As Kyle mentioned, there's obviously a ton of adoption of Bitcoin, particularly in the last year. It's really ramped up. And in the DeFi space, we're seeing that as well, as Kyle noted. But we still see a big gap in terms of user interface and accessibility of DeFi. So with DeFi Ventures, we're focused on bridging that gap, and we see that there's a lot happening in the ecosystem. So it's an exciting space to be.
You're absolutely right. To both your and Adrian point, it is very exciting. It's exciting for many reasons, right? It's a whole new wave of infrastructure. It's a whole new way of thinking and and actually doing finance in many ways. It opens up so many new possibilities, but Ben brings up the best point of it all is that the user interface for most of these applications is still very archaic, if you will, for what we would expect and what we're used to. I mean, trying to figure out how to use some of the applications built for DeFi are still not there, even though we're looking at a bigger mass adoption in bringing people into the world of digital currencies. The bigger picture of decentralized finance, we're still not yet there. Ben, let me come to you first. Why? Why? We've got amazing developers, amazing designers, amazing people from the Web 2 world moving into Web 3. And just for context, everybody, that's the wave we're headed into right now with all of these new things we've been talking about here on VCT, along with decentralized applications. It's all coming. So that's Web 3. But then why? Why are we so lagging with big infrastructure projects and applications with tons of billions of dollars? Why can we not have good interfaces?
Yeah, I think it's a trend that you typically see with any new technology. With any major new innovation like this, I think a lot of the building that happens is engineers really building for engineers or existing users in that space. So with DeFi, I think the initial sort of target market for a lot of these protocols and apps is crypto traders or people really that are more kind of on the crypto expert side. And you'll see that when you go to really any of the major DeFi protocols that represent a lot of the TVL that you've mentioned in the space. And so I think that's a pretty sort of typical place to start. But then you start to get more sort of mainstream interest, and with DeFi, it's really happening very quickly. I mean, I think obviously we're well, maybe not obviously, but my view is we're still in the infancy of DeFi. But I think we see the ramp up happening a lot quicker even than Bitcoin, and that is because of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has carved this path for acceptance of a new sort of digital standard, and so it's paved the way for DeFi a little bit. But I think it is. And we see it still. There's definitely some better, user interfaces and experiences sort of coming out as the space grows. But it's still super early and still really kind of catered towards people that know all the terminology, that have been trading every day, and so it really is a big barrier for those that are just trying to get introduced to it.
Yeah, you're spot on, Adrian. Anything else to add? I mean, you and I, Adrian, talk about this all the time, and we're happy, Ben, to have you here as our co-host today. But Adrian and I, we talk about this all the time, and Adrian is a big proponent of some of the bumps that we've hit in the road around these applications. Adrian, anything to add on to that?
This is a major roadblock right now towards mass adoption, because most of the users we want into DeFi are non-tech people. And these platforms, how they are designed today, are very simple to be used for somebody who is used to a trading platform, to a little bit of coding here and there. And they don't care about the usability. But for the regular users, these platforms are foreign languages. And as we mentioned today, the fact that Morgan Stanley started a Bitcoin fund, they are translating Bitcoin's language, slang and paradigm to the average medium worth investors. And somehow in DeFi, either these platforms need to put resources in the usability, or something else has to happen so the regular user to start adopting them. Because if you put normal people into these platforms, let's say if you compare, for example, eToro with Uniswap, they are two different worlds. On eToro, it's very simple. You push a button, you do this, you do that. Of course, it's a centralized platform. It's a trading platform, but you have a fantastic user experience. If you want to buy something, and of course Uniswap is the daddy of those platforms, others are even more archaic. If you put the same user in such a platform, those users will run away. And I don't know why, because there's so much money anyway in this space. Why there isn't any focus in this direction? I don't know. And Ben pointed very well. I don't, maybe some they don't care, but
yeah,
Ben's got a smirk on his face. He might know something as well.
Yeah.
Well, so I was going to say, Adrian, like I agree with everything you said, and it is kind of confusing to me why there isn't. But at the same time, I feel like it is such a new, like the market size, like we all know, is huge. But I guess in terms of like relative time, a lot of these protocols started popping up like summer of last year. So I guess there's that aspect of it. But I think one thing that I noticed when I was first starting to kind of dive into DeFi, which I had, even though I have been squarely in the crypto space for a long time, I ignored DeFi for the first probably 4 or 5 months, mostly because there was the first time I heard of it, kind of in this new context, was somebody came to me and said they wanted to do an ICO, and I kind of had this like Twilight Zone moment of I felt like it was back in 2016, and I was like, well, what are you talking about? But that kind of steered me away from things for a little while and what was actually happening in space. But I think on the one thing I've noticed with the user interfaces and platforms is there are sort of efforts to educate and create kind of learning materials around DeFi, but typically they start kind of at the middle. So rather than sort of bottom up. So if you're somebody who is not a crypto expert or trader, or somebody who's kind of more on the kind of coding and engineering side, even the learning materials that are out there are assuming that you have this requisite level of knowledge. So I think we're definitely seeing some good stuff starting to come out around that, but I think it's still starting at the wrong spot.
So Ben, this is actually a really good question, and I see some others I want to bring in here from the audience in just a moment. But a good question that you bring up here is where to start. I mean, we throw out all these great companies that we know, and protocols as well, and DEX and decentralized exchanges. DeFi is a hot topic. It's fun and exciting. It's a little scary. It's a little bit of everything. Where do you start? I mean, whether you're an investor, you're an entrepreneur, you're someone who's experienced in finance. I mean, where did you get your start, or where did you go to begin, or even where do you recommend people to begin their journey into learning DeFi and not, just being in fear the entire time?
Yeah, that's a good question, because because we've kind of gone through this with our team, where we have so we have about 10 people on our team. Most of them are engineers who understand everything that's going on kind of at a granular level. But then we have people that have joined that don't really have any kind of background in DeFi or crypto, because just due to the role that they're playing, it's sort of not required. So we're kind of putting together. I mean, this is just I don't know if this is going to be helpful for anyone else, but we're kind of putting together different good resources and materials that do give that kind of bottom up education approach. And there are a couple of I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find them and share them in the chat in a bit here. But there are a couple of guides that people in the community have put together that have stuff for beginners, and then it kind of like works its way up as you get more accustomed to what you're seeing. But then in terms of kind of playing on the protocols, like I think for borrowing and lending protocols, like with Compound, for instance, and Aave, I think the fact that you can sort of use testnet to play around, I think is for entry level people, I think obviously there's another layer to that. Like maybe if you have somebody that can walk you through, getting some like, ETH on testnet to play on Compound. But I think it takes out the layer of like, losing your money if you do something wrong. So I think that's something that should definitely be kind of presented more to the, general public, because it would help people to get on board. Like I can just see in our sample size of 10 people on our team, the fact that you can use testnet means everybody's trying it, rather than like just a couple of people that are willing to potentially lose their money. So
yeah, no, I'm with you. This is great. We'd love to see some of those resources that we can share with the audience as well. And I've got one big question we're going to get to, but there is one here in the audience I want to bring up. Depeche, I'm gonna call you out. Congratulations, happy Friday. But he's asking about the market crash, and so I want to frame this around decentralized finance. I mean, again, DeFi, total value locked, is all of the money that is associated with protocols, networks, applications, and otherwise. However, as we're looking at decentralized finance, it is a separate market or markets. Recently over the last few days, as Adrian mentioned, we've had a little bit of a rocky week. What does this mean for decentralized finance? What does this mean for applications? But also, what does it mean maybe in the bigger picture of DeFi as a whole, and that mass adoption, Adrian, that you were talking about? So let's start with you. What does this all mean right now in terms of the markets, where they're at, where they're not at, some of the things going negative in terms of where they were for the overall market of DeFi?
All these movements are like stress tests. So when there are bull movements, usually are tested two things. One is the liquidity, and the second one is the technical capacity of the platforms. And when the thing's crashing, is tested also one of the biggest emotions of people, which is fear. This market is new. As mentioned in the past, the CEO of Binance said at a certain moment that sometimes in the future, the BTC line will look something like that, maybe with something like this. For the moment, these assets are like that. If you know House of Pain's song "Jump Around," is exactly like that. You jump up, you jump down, and that's it. Is the novelty of this market is a huge influx of projects. All of them are craving for attention and are addressing more or less the same market. It's like there are many projects to be fed from the same liquidity, and people are jumping from one to the other. And when I say people, I'm saying institution, investors. So the market is jumping from one to another, and it's normal to be rocky like that. It will take a lot of time until things will settle. So until then, this is the specific of this market, and it reacts a lot to the fundamental, to the news in the market. We see Elon's tweet moving the market. It was a statement from Mr. Joe Biden, the President of the United States, which moved the entire crypto market, and not only, it was also moved the stock market. Things are normal. This is the financial ecosystem overall, and DeFi is part of this overall financial system. We need to live with those and to learn to protect ourselves first, and to learn how to deal with that, because we can't control them. What we can control is what we are doing into what's happening around us. So for such a young industry, it's pretty normal what's happening. The strong will survive, both platforms, investors, I don't know, the strong, the wise, and the ones who will keep up with the stress, technical stress, flooding of users stress, liquidity stress, and all other things which will happen. Hackers trying to get into the system, the stress generated by them. The strongest will survive and thrive. So it's normal what's happening.
Thank you, Adrian. Ben was sending us in our private chat, just for the audience, because I think it's appropriate. It's Friday. Was sending us a fun YouTube video of House of Pain jump around, which was a great example. And I clicked it and it started playing in my ears, so I felt the audience should know that as well. So if happy Friday, everyone. Play that song on YouTube and have some fun as well. But gentlemen, I want to come for today's big question, and that's, where do we go from here with DeFi? I mean, looking at the second half, and I pose this question a lot on VCTV, but I think it's really important right now for decentralized finance. Where do we go in the second half of this year? What happens in decentralized finance? I mentioned we've got some upcoming protocols hitting mainnet. We've got central bank digital currencies that are in technical pilots that are coming to launch next year, 2022. We've got China that may be launching their digital yuan in a much more aggressive fashion earlier than later. We have more activity in DeFi than ever before. What happens? Your predictions, where do we go from here? Ben, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. So, and I'll kind of tie this in a bit to Adrian's last response, because I really like that. I know it's a bit of a different question, but I think the way that he wrapped that up is bang on, which is things, there's ups and downs in the market, it jumps around. But I think we've seen that with Bitcoin, going back a number of years. And as long as the focus sort of stays around, building and, improving the infrastructure to grow the space, then that's what matters and that's what's important. And I think that's certainly what I would say the focus of, most of the people sort of in this community that I've talked to at least remains. And so I think it's really encouraging. And so I think for, and then just on that point, I think the drop in DeFi, recently definitely, syncs right up with Bitcoin. Like, I think it was, a similar percentage of TVL and DeFi that dropped, and then based on sort of Bitcoin's price. So I think in terms of market trends in DeFi, my view is, will still be very closely correlated to Bitcoin as it is today. I think for your average person, it's, there's not a lot of distinction. And part of that, again, goes back to kind of education and being able to create better access so people can see the distinction and see where there is, value in DeFi versus value in Bitcoin. And then I think in terms of building in the space, the protocols are going to continue to, innovate and find more efficient ways to, to provide access to the products that they're providing. I think we're seeing that through 2021, and I think that's going to, continue and ramp up for sure. And I think on the other side of the market, there will be kind of continued growth and adoption of Bitcoin, which translates into more investor interest in the DeFi space, probably initially at a more like abstracted level. I think from people that we've talked to, it's still a bit complicated to kind of get into assets and generate yield and stake, et cetera. So they're more interested in investing in companies that can provide access to that. But as tools get better, more of these mainstream sort of investors are going to get in, and that's going to more capital in the space is good. It's going to help people that are building good things achieve that. And I think it's going to be an interesting year for sure.
I think that's a great way to put it as well. Adrian, to you, and anything else that you want to throw out there in terms of your prediction for the second half of this year?
My prediction is related to the fact that this market will go like crazy, and it's normal to go like crazy because, and I like to look at the fundamentals, and something I like about DeFi is that it gives power to the little guy, to the user. User is not only a consumer, it can also be a producer, is part of the whole ecosystem. And it doesn't disqualify you based on race, gender, or skin color, or other things. So the only thing you have to do is to learn about it, which is your effort if you want to be part of this market. And you can start very low, actually. So the entry barrier for the little guy, for the regular person, is pretty small. Even for average investors, it's accessible, and I'm not talking here about big investors who is normal to target this market. So it's a new paradigm where, as said, and this is the most important, the user is not just a consumer, it can also be a producer and is part of the whole ecosystem and can influence the ecosystem. So based on this paradigm, because even when you create a business, if that business sustains life, that business will grow. DeFi as a paradigm, of course, without hacks, without rug pulls, which are here, but slowly they will decrease, is a paradigm sustaining the development of the humanity. It sustains wealth building and all these values we are fighting for. So it's normal to grow. In which directions we will see. Of course, some of the assets will perform very well. Others no. Some of the platforms will grow like crazy. Other will die. It's like in nature. The strongest will survive and will also thrive. So people need to learn to see, okay, which are the best directions, the best platforms, the best influencers to trust, the best teams, and everybody has to do the own due diligence. But this market will grow like crazy.
Agreed. Thank you, Adrian. Ben, I want to come to you as well for any closing thoughts that you have, and where can everyone find you along with DeFi Ventures to connect afterwards? Because this is not the last conversation we're going to have about this, and I'm sure there's a ton more questions that the audience has. So quick closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, for sure. Just I would just echo Adrian's thoughts. I think it's there's going to be a ton of growth, and then going back to Adrian's earlier point, there's going to be ups and downs, but
jump around.
Yeah, we'll jump around together. But yeah, it's a super exciting area, and I think it explains why there is so much outside interest. Like we're talking to people that have never invested in Bitcoin that are looking to get into decentralized finance, and so I think it shows that there's a keen sort of understanding and interest to get into this space, because it is something that so many people can relate to in terms of issues they've seen with kind of more of the centralized system. So yeah, I think it's just to kind of close on it. I think it's a super interesting space, and I think for those of us that are in it, I think it's part of our job to interact with those that want to get in. And I know everybody in crypto has those friends or kind of colleagues, et cetera, that are trying to get into the space, and you spend the time kind of walking them through onboarding. And I think now is just as important as ever with DeFi to do that, because it is an extra layer of kind of difficulty for people. And I think spending the time to get people onboarded and introduced is super worthwhile.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ben. Adrian, to jump around, if you will, coming back to you, quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online as well?
My closing thought, DeFi is here to stay. but the learning curve is also here to stay, and you need to understand this new world. You need to read about it. You need to learn about this new paradigm, because it's different than everything we witnessed before. And everybody has to do this effort, and I'm saying this time and time again, because also it's something what I'm doing on a weekly basis. I can be found on LinkedIn. I answer to all messages, not all the time immediately. Happy to be here in the VCTV family. Is a fantastic education initiative for anyone who wants to elevate the financial IQ, the business IQ, and everything IQ related to this part of life.
Yep.
And can't wait to come back to the new editions of VCTV. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Thank you as well, Ben. Really appreciate both you co-hosting with me today on, again, today's topic about decentralized finance, or DeFi, as well. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the great comments. Hello to everybody, and also the great questions. Ben, Adrian, and I are all available on social media afterwards today's discussion. So feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Please add context, where you heard us, where you met us, what you would like to continue the conversation about as well, so we can make sure it's an effective conversation as well. And 86 jams, I might have that wrong, but 86 jams, another back reference to the House of Pain there, jumping around. 86 jams, I would love to hear from Adrian and Ben again. So thank you very much. We'll make sure to have them back as well. To the rest of the audience today, make sure you click subscribe, like, and share today's episode. Check out the archive on LATOKEN.com to hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family. Big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making today's episode of VCTV possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me, again, along with Adrian and Ben, everywhere online, and we'd love to hear from you. Please do reach out. With that, everyone have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.